You ready? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go get him! Go get him! Stand in here! Stand on those pedals! At Daytona Speedway for Arma Vintage Racing. About to head out back to the track here. Don't want to be late for course clearance. It's never good.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Excellent. So, what is your two names again?
Go ahead.
Mark.
And I'm Sarah.
Mark and Sarah. So, thanks for coming on, talking to me. We can just jump right into it if you guys are ready.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right. So, this, I believe, will be the EricSwannRacing.com podcast number 100. And welcome to the show, the Mobility Duo. And to get into the triple digits already. It's exciting.
We're
Awesome.
honored to be number 100, man. That's exciting.
That's
Absolutely.
that's cool.
So you guys have a shared passion of mine in snowboarding. Snowboarding has been a big part of my life. When I was growing up, more so, I'd say, than now. But I was on the Dearborn Heights ski and snowboard. It wasn't really a team. It was more of a club atmosphere. So not competitive, but we would go to the local hills around here. We don't really have mountains in Michigan. So we would go to the local hills, and Mount Holly, Brighton, Pine Knob were big for us. Just about every Friday for many years, from I think 4th grade up until a senior year. So
Nice.
a big spot in my heart for snowboarding.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we've heard good things about Michigan. It's not technically on the map for big mountains, but people have spoken highly of it. So yeah.
Yeah, there's always some snow on the ground in Michigan, and if it's in the right conditions, we can make our own, which is nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
Absolutely.
No kidding.
And where are you guys based now?
So we're both born and raised in Oregon. And at the moment, we're riding Mount Bachelor. So for the last 9 years, we're at Timberline and up at Mount Hood. But now we've been at Bachelor for the last couple, or just this year. Yeah. And it's been amazing.
Very good. And you guys have a decent snow base out there, it sounds like?
Yeah, we do. And we keep just getting more, too. In December, it dumped a lot during Christmas time. And then it was kind of sunny spring days for January, February, and then March, April, May, mostly April, May has been just dumping. So we've been blessed in the springtime.
Absolutely. And I've been following you guys on Instagram for quite a while, Mobility Duo on Instagram. And tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what you're about.
Cool. Do you want to?
Yeah. So I am a doctor of physical therapy. Sarah has a variety of credentials. She's a licensed massage therapist, yoga instructor, personal trainer, high school health teacher, and essentially we combined our skills to approach snowboarders and snow athletes in general, but mostly snowboarders, to give them, tips and not just tips, but advice and everything that has to do with strength, flexibility, mobility, healthy living, injury prevention, recovery, rehab, you name it. And that's how we approach our social media and try to provide a variety of funny videos to get the attention of others, and then provide informational videos for people to utilize themselves. And then we have a series of other things that we do as well, but that's kind of the main thing of it.
Yeah, I will say our main goal with Mobility Duo is to help keep snowboarders riding as long as possible. So we've been snowboarders for, 15 years for you, long time, like 10 years for me. And we want to keep riding up until our older ages. We have friends and family who have gotten up there in in age, and they don't ride as much because their body aches all the time. And we want to try to eliminate that, because not being able to use our passion or be able to do our passion it's heartbreaking. And so we want to be able to help people stay on the mountain longer.
Yeah, and do you see at a certain age point people switching from snowboarding over to skiing to try to be on the skis or on the vehicle longer instead of being on their butts, or do you see people in their 80s still snowboarding?
That's a really good question. So we've seen a couple of older people still snowboarding, but I do think the majority switches to skiing. However, it's just a different skiing. You don't fall as much as the idea, right? You're not bending over to strap in all the time. You're not landing on your wrists or your butt. You're mostly up all the time. However, with skiing, there are a lot of knee injuries. And so it's a little bit of a trade-off, but I do think that a lot of people switch to skiing at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, honestly, because snowboarding is so young. We're kind of going into uncharted territories as far as these kids that were snowboarding in the 80s, 90s are now getting older, middle-aged adults. And, like Sarah said, there is, it requires a lot of flexibility, mobility to bend over and strap your boot in. I think these step-ons are a game changer and could change the scope of how old people are snowboarding till. But yeah, I mean, I think we haven't really seen that yet. And I think as the next decade, you're going to see a lot more of that. And you're going to see a lot of older snowboarders on the mountain. But it is one thing to like switch from snowboarding to skiing in your 50s and 60s. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's a whole new sport, basically. It's a whole new way of going down the mountain.
Absolutely. So that's a commitment in itself. And I would be surprised if someone's willing to do that and change that if they've been snowboarding their whole life. So there's new developments, technology that could allow people to keep doing this aside from just the strength, flexibility, mobility it requires. So
yeah, it's interesting to see how everything progresses. And there's not just one type of ski anymore. There's dozens of different for whether you're doing jumps or tricks, or you had the short versions of the skis, and even I've seen some, I don't know if you call them toys, but they have like skateboards now that are used on the snow. That's pretty cool innovation.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, actually just recently we had an event here at Mount Bachelor called Rendezvous, and it was just where everyone comes and camps out on the mountain for a couple of days. It's really fun, but they had a couple of competitions. They had a snow skate competition, the skateboard you were talking about.
Yeah.
And they had a ski skate competition with the short skis.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch all those different, like, I don't know, varieties of skiing going on.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so you guys are heavy into yoga. I've been doing yoga for quite a while, and I advocate for that as much as possible. Now I do the hot yoga. That may not apply to your part of it. You do cold yoga for getting ready in the snow?
Yeah, kind of. I guess you'd call it cold yoga. Hot yoga is great. I love hot yoga during the winter months where I'm like, I just want to be warm and go do that. Sometimes it is a little intense. I've heard of people almost passing out or it's too warm. But yeah, we do cold yoga on the mountain. But my classes that I teach on a regular basis, they're just at home online. So we'll just call them lukewarm yoga.
Yeah,
sure. At room temperature.
Yeah, room temperature yoga.
I do think to a degree though. I mean, yoga is yoga. Like there are different varieties and different outlooks and histories to each form, but I think at the end of the day it has the same foundation, whether that's the physical, the spiritual, the breathing side to it. Regardless of form that you utilize, it's yoga at the end of the day, so it's all good.
Yeah, and it's very mental too. For me, it's sometimes difficult to, you got a lot of things going on, is to calm your mind and just do the exercise and stop thinking about, they even say a lot of times, okay, that exercise is done. Stop thinking about it. Think about the next one now. Think about what you're doing now with your body. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was thinking about what I just did already.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the fun part too. And that's how I think yoga relates to the mountain and probably motocross too, so much is you have to be in the moment. or you
Yeah.
don't have to, but it trains you to be in the moment. And
Yeah.
that's what's so addicting. That's what the flow is all about, right? Whether you're writing or doing yoga, like it's that flow that's so meditative.
Yeah, that's so elusive, or that you want to keep coming back towards. You know, that's why I started riding a bicycle as a kid, because you just feel free. You're like, I can do anything. I can go anywhere with this. And then
Yeah.
you start to get better and your skills improve, and you're like, wow, I can really start pushing the front tire in this corner, and
Yeah.
it's okay, you know, because I understand the concepts and the principles behind it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, Sarah brings up a good point. Is that flow? I think is the thing that everyone is chasing. Is you know, especially in any type of sport that we do, it's that ability to make those movements, see the play, see the track ahead, and decide kind of what you're going to do prior to it occurring. That applies to on the mountain on a snowboard. That applies to on a motorcycle or a dirt bike, whatever you're at. And then that applies to yoga. So you know, chasing that flow and being able to harness that on and off the mountain or track, whatever is kind of what we're after.
Yeah, and now for racing, I would always like close my eyes, sit on the bike, and visualize what I'm going to do on the racetrack. But I never quite did that for snowboarding, because I wasn't really racing for snowboarding. It was more of a leisure activity. Yes, you want to do well, but I never like sat down and thought about what I was going to do as much before I did it. It was more like, I'm just going to go down the hill and mosey on down and try to do some nice turns and carve and watch out for the people. And you are maybe out of control, or you know, not watching for you, turning across, going to different lanes or different runs down the mountain.
Totally. And that's the difference between competition and just enjoying too. Like when you compete, mentalization, or is that what it's called? Visualization, like mentally, like closing your eyes and seeing what you're going to do in your head is so powerful. Like there was an Olympic diver, I don't know her name, but she got injured before the Olympics, and all she could do to train was just visualize her jumps, visualize her turns, and she ended up winning gold.
Yeah,
that's all she did was visualize. And that's a very powerful tool that competitors, if they don't use, they should.
I think it's definitely underutilized. I've heard Michael Phelps talk about, he would go to the extreme of visualization, where he would visualize waking up in the morning, turning his alarm clock off, like going through the whole routine until he stood on the podium with his hands in the air. Like the whole race, all the strokes involved, like every meticulous detail, both going through it in his mind from waking up to winning the race and like standing on the podium. So like that seems extreme for most people, but if you can create like this mental roadmap in your mind, and then when it's time to do it, you're not nervous, you know what's going to happen, and you just go through the motions, and you're just like hitting your points and going on the next one.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said for self-fulfilling prophecy too, like not only in sports, but in life. Like your mental state and what you believe you can do is your cap.
Sure.
Your cap is up here, then you're going to achieve up here. But if your cap is down here, then you're going to achieve that. And so mentally prepping, if you want to say that, or mentally visualizing or setting goals, like whatever you think you can do, you can. Yeah. And that's really cool in all realms of life, whether it's quitting your job and starting your own business or traveling or whatever. Like, yeah, as long as you visualize that and see that for yourself, you can make it happen.
Really, you are your own creator of your own life. It's as much as people seem like they're being pushed around by all these external forces, which you are sometimes.
Yeah.
You have the ability to change a lot in your life.
Absolutely. I always say that in my yoga classes. I always say that your life is a blank canvas and you're a painter. And when we're kids, that's really easy. That's like, oh yeah, I have all these dreams and aspirations and I want to do this with my life. And as we grow up, we kind of become like curmudgeons. Like, well, this is it. This is my life. And we kind of forget that we still have that power. Yeah. Even if you're 60 years old, if you want to turn your life around, you can.
Sure. And so I'm kind of in the midst of doing that myself. You know, I started my own business selling parts online. I have access to, and I'm an authorized dealer of 35 motorsport brands out of my house, out of my basement. So like doing it all by myself. I'm one employee, type of business. So it's not there yet, but I'm growing it. And in the meantime, while I still need to make money and live and pay expenses, I became a track marshal. So I'm a race official for motorcycle racing and cars, Formula One, IndyCar, mostly motorcycles though. And so going around to different events, Florida. I've already been to Florida, I think 4 times this year, and Texas and Georgia, and just going all around to different events because there's not a whole lot going on in Michigan in the wintertime. So you got to usually travel to get there. But and then this past weekend, I just became a certified motorcycle riding coach for street riders who are looking to get their endorsement. It's actually staggering and very surprising to me how many riders are riding unendorsed who have never taken any sort of formal class. And so I took this class. It's MSF, Motorcycle Safety Foundation. I took this class 13 years ago, I think, maybe 14 years ago, a long time ago, when I first got my license. And it's only $50 for a weekend class, and they teach you everything you need to know, from this is what a clutch does, and this is the shift lever, to this is how you make a tight turn in a parking lot so you don't fall over, and basic clutch control. So we've already taught a couple classes, and it's cool seeing the students who maybe were riding for 10 years unendorsed and getting them finally officially the right paperwork and everything to be legal and not get pulled over and get their bike towed, which would be a bad day. And then for the people who've never rode a bike, maybe never even seen a clutch lever before, getting them from knowing nothing to, at the end of the weekend in 2 days, getting them to ride a motorcycle, at least at a basic level, is pretty rewarding.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So what did you do before this?
So I'm a racer also, but I've run into some financial difficulties because racing is obviously very expensive. So that's why I started my business, to help fund a racing program at a professional level. So I've raced modified sport bikes, like road racing on pavement with left turns and right turns, elevation up and down. Usually a lap is maybe 2 miles or so. And we're going up to about 160 miles an hour in some of the classes. They go up to, like, the top level MotoGP is over 220 miles an hour on a motorcycle. So not quite that fast as those guys. It's another 70 miles an hour faster than we are in our class. So pretty quick stuff. So racetrack only is what I like to do for cars and motorcycles, go-karts, race some mountain bikes too. I don't have a ton of experience with motocross or dirt yet, but that's another avenue I'd like to get better at. Anytime you're sliding in the dirt, you learn how the tires work pretty quick.
It's amazing. Different sports working with the kind of ground underneath you.
Yeah.
So like with snowboarding on a day with ice is so different than snowboarding on a day with powder versus snowboarding on a day with cascade concrete, which is what we call our powder. And so like every learning each day of oh, how can I manipulate this ground beneath me? But same with biking. Like Mark and I just picked up mountain biking last season, and we learned very quickly that riding on top of loose dirts like sand, taking turns is very different than taking turns on a little more wet dirt. It slides out way easier when you have that loose, drier dirt. And so just getting to know the ground that you're riding on is, I think, such a fun aspect of every sport.
Yeah, it's always difficult, and it changes throughout the day, and it changes based on your tire pressure and how fast you're riding, your lean angle. So you got to be very adaptable quickly. And when I was doing some mountain bike racing, it was a state of Michigan championship. So there's a 10 round championship, and most of the events I've never been to, and I'm not fit enough to be able to pre-ride the course before the race and then be still fresh for the race. So most of these events I was racing it blind. I had no idea which way I'm going. I mean, the trail's marked, but you're blind half the time with all the elevation up and down in corners. You don't know where you're going for another 2 turns. And so you're coming around a corner at 20 miles an hour, it's a hairpin left and there's sand in the corner. You're like, oh crap, this is not good. You just gotta be so committed to making that corner, and better not be too much on the front tire, you'll wash out.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
anyone that does the lap once before the race? Like, are there people who actually do that?
I'm sure that some people are locals. They're familiar to it. I'm living in the southeast part of Michigan, and there's a race 4 hours away. I'm not gonna.
Right.
I don't really have the ability to go up there the weekend before. I mean, some people if they're serious about it, yeah, I'm sure they're hitting all the rounds on a normal basis. But for me, I'm just trying to dip my toe into a new form of racing sport, a new discipline for me that's really cheap to do. It's like $40 an event instead of, a couple thousand for racing a motorcycle. So
Yeah,
it's good training.
Oh yeah,
totally.
absolutely. I would assume also that the ability to read the terrain last second is important.
Oh
When
yeah.
it comes to the motorcycles as well.
Yeah, because say you have a rain event at a racetrack, whether it's a mountain bike race or a road race for motorcycles, you race in rain or shine. So as long as there's not thunder and lightning or tornado winds, that type of thing, or heavy fog, you have to be able to see at least the next corner,
Yeah.
so that the flag marshals can see each other and communicate and everything. Um, so yeah, it's always a constantly changing surface, and with motorcycles, you have degrading tires throughout the race. And I was just watching a race from a couple years ago I have on YouTube, and you can see it might have been the fourth or fifth race of that day I was doing an 8 lap sprint race. So my tires are shot, and I'm coming around the corner, going on the longest straightaway and spinning up the rear tire. And at that point, I'm just trying to finish the race because my tires are not at optimal capacity, and the racers I'm with probably have new tires on their bike. They may only do 1 or 2 races the whole weekend, and I'm doing 6. So I'm at a disadvantage already. And then, your bike is changing underneath you with the fuel load. You might start with a full fuel tank. By the end of the race, you might have lost a couple gallons, depending on how long the race is. So that's 20 pounds maybe of difference in fuel.
Yeah.
And that feels a lot different sloshing around in your tank at the end of the race.
That makes sense. If you're having to adjust your body movements to, like, maybe your turn, you don't lean as hard because your bike weighs less.
Right. So these fine adjustments you're always making, just like in mountain bike racing, it's always these fine adjustments to try to get their best time through that sector.
Absolutely.
So what would be some tips you guys have for new snowboarders, new skiers, people getting into the sport in your industry?
Yeah, so someone who's new, getting into snowboard or skiing, I can relate more to snowboarding. I would say start with the basics first. So, skating, getting to know your equipment, getting on and off the lift, starting on the bunny hill. I think the mistake people make is they jump up to more advanced terrain too soon, whether that's because of ego or they just think they're ready. And I would also, I know not everyone can do this, but choose the right day, because there are days that are forgiving, because you're going to be on your butt a lot, and then there are days that aren't, when it's icy or concrete. And I think the statistics are wild as far as how many people go up snowboarding like once or twice a year and then never do it again, or or whatever, just because they have a bad time. And that's the challenge right now in the snow industry, is how do you keep these people, the money aside, how do you keep these people coming back and buying multiple tickets and buying the hotels and food and all that stuff. But yeah, that would be my advice.
I would say take a lesson. That's something I didn't do. I don't think you did either.
No.
Yeah, I didn't do that because when I was starting snowboarding, I was just going with my buddies, and they said they would teach me. And buddies teaching you is great, but it's nothing like a snowboarding coach and having that one-on-one time. And I will say, when you ride with your buddies, there's almost a sense of urgency, oh, I'm holding them back, I need to get up, I need to go, and then you wreck, and then you get up, and it can become emotional too. And so I would say just let your buddies go and take a class with a coach, and it'll be way way better for your body too, because you're probably going to fall less if you do that. And so it's a little bit of prevention there as well.
Sure, I would highly recommend that as well. Taking class, getting a coach, taking a lesson, I should say.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate with the group that I went with. They had, if you took the bus to get to the mountain, you got a free lesson in that in your lift ticket. So every single time for a while that I went, I just took the lesson. I was like, well, why not? It's only like an hour or two. I'm going to be there for like 8 hours or something.
So smart.
So why not just take the lesson? And I think I occurred like 6 black patches over my time because I didn't tell them I already had one. I took it off my jacket or I had it on my lift tag still. So I just like, yeah, I'm just taking the class. And they're like, wow, you're good. Here's your patch, you know?
That's awesome.
And then for a while, I was like, well, this is kind of silly. I don't really need to do this anymore. So I took it completely switch, opposite direction. And I got black patches going switch. So I learned how to do both directions flawlessly. And what really helped me do that was realizing that how much you really have to rotate your torso to feel comfortable, and learning it a second way. It's like, man, I know how to do this. Why can't I learn how to do switch so easily?
Yeah.
And it's like reteaching yourself how to do it makes it easier the other way too.
Yes, absolutely. That was actually my goal this season, was to become more confident in switch, because once you unlock switch, you unlock so many other tricks, like 180s, any kind of rotation. You just feel more comfortable that any way you land, you know how to grab on your toes.
Yeah.
And so
I had come from a skateboarding background. I mean, not that proficient as far as like crazy tricks and stuff, but I used to go to a skate park and half pipes and did street stuff. Did wakeboarding for many years. My family owns a cottage, and so we'd always go to the lake at least a couple times a year and wakeboard and slalom ski and skiing on water skiing. So all that stuff is definitely a good foundation for snowboarding too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why we try to encourage people to take on a sport in the off season, like whether it's mountain biking or wakeboarding, which would be a really good comparison, skateboarding, surfing, those kind of sports, not only like what we talked about earlier, keep you in that mindset of acting quickly and acting like getting in that zone, that flow state, but also keeps your body moving with those rotations and with those hips, and just keeps you fresh.
Yeah. So I'm embarrassed to say I did sell my snowboard on eBay. I sell everything. So I'm like, I kind of needed a new one. So I sold it to get my money out of it. I just haven't bought a new one yet. So.
Oh, dang. Are you going to?
Yeah, that's the plan. I had a K2. I forget the model of it, but it was a whiteboard. I had it for years. It was pretty nice. You get attached to them. And it was one of those symmetrical boards. So because I like to go switch, you can do switch identically the opposite way with that board, because some of the boards, as you know, are like one direction. They're built for going one way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I prefer the twin as well. So, you could do either direction. I think my only one direction is my powder board, and that's the only time I would ever use it is for in the powder. But otherwise, it's nice to be able to have that option. Yeah,
and I just saw some of your content recently. Now you're representing a certain snowboard brand.
Yes. Yeah. We're working with Cardiff Snowcraft, based out of Utah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited. It's a not your average bear when it comes to snowboards, just because it was started by an architect. The design and quality of the boards is nothing like I've ever seen. Maybe I'm a little biased, but they specialize in split boards, powder specific directional boards. Yeah, definitely check them out if you can. You just check out the website itself. It'll just make your jaw drop. It's very, very impressed.
Yeah, the Cardiff boards, what I like is they started making split boards. Like they made split boards first. And I don't think anyone else in the industry has done that. Everyone has always made a solid and then went to split. But they were so passionate about backcountry and getting snowboarders out into the backcountry that they made a split first. And they perfected it so much that people were like, "Oh, like, can you make solids?"
Yeah.
And so we started making solids. So like that's just a testament of how good they're, like how well made their boards are.
Yeah, this has reminded me, I think in probably middle school, we did some sort of project like, what would be your ideal career? And I chose being a snowboard maker or a snowboard manufacturer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been on my mind for years. I'm not an architect or anything. I never went to school for that stuff, but it always kind of piqued my interest because I'm like, I love snowboards. If I could make snowboards and be like artsy with it, make all these cool designs and
Totally.
it's a cool occupation that you can just make your own snowboards a la carte yourself and start, having a template for everything. And there's obviously so many different niches that you could go down with snowboards because there's, different terrain boards and different, styles of riding that you could do and somebody might like your particular design and try it out.
Absolutely. Which is a really cool part of Cardiff too, is the maker of Cardiff is he is an actual architect.
Yeah.
Awesome, because I don't think you don't have to be an architect to make snowboards.
Right.
But he is, and that's just freaking cool.
It's a different lens and approach to design.
Yeah.
I think actually originally he entered a contest by making like a lot of these small companies. There's a big contest, I forget where, but he entered it and won. And then I think that's how it was born.
And then he entered another one with a different board, won again.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could probably use those fundraising websites, Kickstarter or something like that to probably get started too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many small companies, popping up, snowboard companies that, whether it's the design or the shape or whatever, that it's cool to see. It's not dominated by like 3 or 4 companies anymore. There's a bunch.
Yeah, we have a buddy up at Timberline who he really loves this board. I don't know what the company is, but you can put your own design. Like they just make the plain white snowboard, and then you can just choose what graphic you want. Like you can literally send them a picture, and he has like this anime on his board, and it's really cool because you can make your own like graphics.
It'd be very unique, one-off.
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally. Yep.
And one of my aspirations for my business is I do motorsports, and I do sell globally. So, there are some overlaps where we're selling stuff in the winter to, South Africa or Australia, wherever. But I would like to have all seasons covered. Like it'd be nice to have a snowboard company that I would be available or authorized to sell for the winter months. Maybe some gloves, boots for wintertime, so that I have not only the summertime aspect, but maybe have some hockey and snowboarding stuff as well. It would be a nice addition to have not have a slow season.
Absolutely. So many people in the industry have that same concern. Like we have a lot of buddies who work in the snowboard industry, whether it's online with their own business or just at a resort. And that's the hard part, is like, okay, now that the season is up and you make a bulk of your income during the season, and then you have to kind of just be very smart with it, because you don't make much, or for some people any, during the off season. And so I think a lot of people are trying to figure out that same thing.
Yeah, there's a store near me called D&D Bicycles and Hockey. It's like, well, how'd you get to those two? That's the same kind of concept. They're trying to limit their down season or low season times.
Yeah, that's kind of our focus too, is in the winter months. We started mostly with snowboarders, and in the winter months, that's who we focus on. But in the summer, we rock climb, we mountain bike, we do trail runs, like all the things that we participate in, we like to help with.
Yeah. And so if somebody wanted to take one of your classes for yoga, where would they go, or what do they do, and how much is it? Is there a fee?
Yeah, so how it works is there's a bunch of different ways you can get to it, but overall it's just mobilityduo.com. And when you go there, there's a link for Snowga. That's just the name of our membership. It's Yoga for Snowboarders. But what happens is we have weekly long classes, and right now we're actually doing a 30 days of yoga series.
Okay.
Really cool. So every day is like 10 to 15 minutes of yoga in the morning. Everything is saved and put up. So even if you can't go to the live classes, you can just go at your own time. And then on 2 times a week, there's hour-long classes. There's one in the morning, one in the evening, and there's like almost 100 classes saved already. So you can just
Oh, wow.
visit the bank and you can just go and search and be like, I want something for back pain, and like you can do a flow for that, or I want something to open up my hips, and you can do something for that. And so yeah, that's how people join, is just going to our website. And we have a monthly rate and an annual rate, and so like you can pay month to month, kind of like a renter, you know, or you can pay for the whole year, and it's like, I don't know, $120 less if
If you pay all up front for the year.
yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. It
Yeah.
sounds like you got a couple different options for people to pay for it, and you got a lot of different classes. So it sounds like you got the whole shebang.
Yeah, and it's
Absolutely.
only growing. I mean, we're getting to know, I mean, Mark, bless his soul, he is the tech. I try not to say this because I want to be tech savvy, but I grew up without any computers, TV, or anything until I was in college, and then that whole world was introduced to me. So I have a hard time with tech. So he's been figuring out how to like upgrade the website too, so where people can favorite, there's like, they can say that this is their favorite yoga class, and they can go to a section where it's all their favorites, and they can redo, or they can search, and there's all these, yeah, so we're constantly getting better.
Yeah, and I'm sure at a certain point you have so many users, you might have to upgrade your servers and all that thing to accommodate more users. So there's a lot to, you know, building a website, and I'm learning myself. I'm not a coder, but nowadays there's a lot of drag and drop kind of features that you can use from other websites that have developed this, and you just pay them $5 a month or whatever for that feature, which is nice.
100%.
Yep, we do a lot of that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of being a small business owner, is you wear all hats. So the nice thing about Sarah and I is we have two people, so
Yeah.
we can focus on different things. Sarah is definitely the charisma and the, you know, the brain behind the yoga, and I'm the behind the scenes, kind of the finance guy, and it works well. But someone who is by themselves, doesn't have the means to hire out just yet, it'd be a lot harder. You know, I can imagine, you know, being in your shoes and having to do all of that.
Yeah.
The shipping, the website, the communication, the books, like it's a lot.
It definitely is. And I've thought about getting a partner or something like that, but at the same time, then you lose some equity, you lose some ownership a little bit. I mean, my name's on it, so I'm not losing the ownership, but it's kind of, at the same time, I don't know if it's a great thing to have my name on it, because yes, I'm getting my name out there, but it'd be maybe harder to sell at some point. If that, you know, down the road, who wants to buy Eric Swahn Racing? It's, you know, it's all based on your reputation also. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So it's just hit or miss. You know, I talked to somebody who was coming on this podcast, and she said, you know, I really don't want my name out there. She gave me like the name of her business instead of her full name, which is fine. But at the same time, it's like, you know, that's me and my business. So
Right.
Yeah.
thought on that.
It's hard when a business is attached to you. Like we are Mobility Duo. We are our brand. We are our business. Even though it's not like Sarah and Mark's Mobility Duo, it's just Mobility Duo. But like you said, it can really create burnout, because we can't really hand it off. You know, we can't have someone else make the content. We can't have someone else buy it from us, which is okay, because we love doing what we do.
Yeah.
But we are trying to figure out ways to share the load in the future, like seeing if we want to invite other yoga teachers, other physical therapists that are maybe like a mountain bike rider or a motocross, or like just a specialty in their sport, and be like, okay, now you teach yoga on our platform to those people, to that sport.
Yeah,
And
I see that could work to have experts in their own field teach about along the same lines of your thinking and your beliefs with, you know, yoga teaching and all that.
Yeah.
I think that could be one way to kind of step outside of it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your face, you know, as long as they are a knowledgeable yoga coach in their own field. It could be a good platform for others to share their knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually did, to follow up with that, I actually kind of disagree with Sarah,
Oh, really?
and yourself, just because I think as a business, I mean, imagine this business as a ball of clay. You can mold this however you want. There are multi-billion-dollar companies that have the last name of the founder that do that all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
look at, for example, Bear Paint. I'm sure, I don't know the history of that, but I'm sure the guy's name or woman was Bear.
Yeah,
But now it's a million-dollar paint company.
right.
It just depends on how you want to develop that, mold
Mhm.
that. You can slowly step out of the scene, hand off the reins to other people. You can develop your company to be whatever you want.
That's true.
That's the beauty and the difficult part of business is making those decisions, and trust is a big one. Um, but yeah, I think it may be harder, with your last name as the racing company, but I don't think it's impossible. I think you could absolutely, develop that to however you want it to be.
Yeah, that's a good point because if you think about it, all businesses are pretty much names of people like Chase, JP Morgan Chase, or like Henry Ford.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And people have said like, oh, Eric Swan, that's a catchy name. Like, thank you. That's the one I was given, I guess.
Well, it's all marketing, right? It's the trust that people have in Eric Swan Racing. They see Eric Swan Racing, they go, oh, I trust this company is going to send me my parts quickly, or maybe you start developing parts in the future. I
Yeah.
trust these are going to be quality parts and not crap out on me halfway through the race. Doesn't have to be your face anymore. It comes down to the marketing and the trust behind that name. It's
Yeah.
reputation.
It is. I also think to be able to do what you said and like move the business from like, okay, this is just me to maybe a little bit more hands off. I think it'd be really important to kind of like snowboarding, how we talked about earlier, of having a coach, having someone who is successful in that to mentor you and be like, oh, how did you move from, I mean, of course, those people are hard to find, but how did you move from, doing this solely on your own to then being able to step away a little bit, because trial and error is always going to take a lot longer.
Yeah, then actually talking to someone who's been through it, who's maybe 5 to 10 years ahead of where you are, I think is very valuable too.
Absolutely.
So do you guys have mentors who you try to glean information from or try to learn from?
I think everyone has mentors. I mean, anyone who says they don't, I think is lying. We've had a few along the way. I'm not going to name any names on this, but yeah, absolutely. You need guidance, especially as a small business owner, because everyone is going to hit a roadblock, or be between a crossroads of which direction to take. And I think whether that's your friends, your family, people outside your company, just to talk shop and throw ideas out there and give you a different lens on the situation, because everyone's outlook on the world is different, and maybe you just need a different view, a different perspective. You need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes to see what they're looking at. So yeah, that would be my take on it.
Yeah, I would say the nice thing about being online, social media, is that you have so many people who have so many other of their own skills that can chime in and be like, hey, I do this, or I'm a professional in this field. Can I help you? Because they care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so that's been really cool too, is even though we don't know all the answers, we have a lot of people who we care for and they care for us. They want to see us succeed. And so we can help more people, and they help us with just, the goodness of their hearts. Like, it's cool to have these little mentors too.
Sounds like you got a good community of people around you, and I'm doing this to help promote you guys. I don't expect $1 from you for doing this. It's just, at one point it's free content for me. It's good content for you. Hopefully we still got people watching at this point, and just trying to help promote people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate that.
And that's what's cool about these kind of platforms too, is like, we don't have to exchange money to do stuff like this. It's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll share it to my network of people. You do the same, and hopefully we have a little bit of overlap in followers, and some people will check you out, and vice versa.
And what's cool about that too is it's not always about us getting more eyes or you getting more eyes, but we like to think of it as like we want to help our community.
Yeah.
And so when we do we've done talks with snowboard specific nutritionists or mental health therapists or whatever. We want to be able to have those resources to be like, hey, our community, if you're struggling in this field, go check out them. Like it kind of becomes a network. And so like if we know people in bike racing, we'll be like, oh, go check out Eric. And because it's just building our network.
Yeah. And it's making new friends. I did not think I would be learning a ton of stuff by doing this podcast. I thought it'd just be like a nice thing to talk to people and like create some stuff. But I've learned a ton from talking to now 100 people on this podcast for at least an hour. How often do you sit down with somebody and just talk to them for an hour without looking at your phone or distractions? For me, it's only this time really is when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of podcasts these days, right? Like there's so much information out there, and we have a lot of downtime or times where it's, for example, driving or whatever on a bus, and now we have this ability at our fingertips to learn all this knowledge. Our interests, and it's pretty cool.
It is cool.
For sure. And is there anything on your mind you wanted to talk about today? Maybe we haven't covered?
I think for me is just that movement is a gift that I think many of us take advantage of. And until that is taken away from you, until you are in that realm or world where you see people who can't move or who are vulnerable with injury, that you realized how precious this really is. And I just encourage those to maybe don't have the motivation to move or aren't doing it because whatever reason, life takes over. Just take a walk, whether it's 10, 15, 20 minutes. I feel like walking is extremely powerful, meditative. If you do get the motivation to look into strength training, flexibility, mobility work, because I think it can change your life. Not just the physical, but the mental side of that. And it can really spark, as cliche as it sounds, it can really, create a ball kind of rolling down the hill, and opportunities arise in other areas of your life. So that would be my take on
answer.
that.
Yeah, I've been unfortunately injured many times throughout my career of racing and riding and playing sports and all that, so, and snowboarding as well. And it's you don't realize how good you had it yesterday before you were injured, and now you don't have a function of your collarbone or your arm or your legs or whatever the injury is. And it's like, oh man, you feel like almost this depression come over you because I could do this yesterday, but I can't do it today. And so for me, wanting to get back to in shape or not injured is such a priority when you are injured. And it's amazing to me now regaining full capability of my body that people don't use it. People waste it, but whether it's being overweight or whatever the issue is, or not using their body and letting it rust or rot, for lack of a better term, it's really frustrating to see that from, it's like you have the ability to use your body and you're not using it. Somebody in a wheelchair would love to have those legs and you're not doing anything with it. And that kind of irritates me.
Yeah, great point. And I think the other thing is people get overwhelmed and, with maybe they stop exercising and they want to get back into it. One, they don't know how, they don't have the knowledge, but they get overwhelmed thinking, well, I don't have the time to do this. But even if it's 5 minutes of movement, of a quick squats, lunges, push-ups, whatever, something basic, that's all it takes. The hardest part is getting started.
Yeah. It's about building habits. If you have a habit to work out every day, it's not a big deal. It's just like, this is what makes my body feel good, that I need to do this to, touch my toes again because I'm getting stiff. I haven't stretched in a couple hours. You feel that. You sit on a plane for a couple hours, like, oh man, I need to stretch again. It's that quick. So yeah, it's just all about building those habits.
Yeah, and I think, but I think the last thing for me is everyone's an athlete. We tend to put ourselves in these boxes of, oh, I'm a motocross guy, I'm a snowboarder, I'm a climber. But
or stay at home mom.
at the end of the day, like,
whatever.
yeah, the 80-year-old is just as much of an athlete as Tom Brady on the football field.
Mhm.
It's just different platforms. So movement, strength, flexibility, mobility, they apply to everyone, you know. And I think people don't realize that there's benefits all around, regardless of the platform of your sport or activity.
If you have a body, you're an athlete.
Yep.
Yeah, life is a contact sport.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like how, they always say perfect practice makes perfect, like, and so when you take on every day and you practice these habits that you're talking about, even if they start really small, of like, okay, I'm just going to drink water first thing in the morning, or I'm going to do a 5-minute meditation, or I'm going to do a 5-minute yoga, or whatever it is. Like, even if you start small, when you practice those habits, they get bigger and they grow, and then you pick up more good habits, and then you become your optimal self.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just a lifelong journey to get there. It's not an overnight process. It's just every day you gotta keep doing it.
It's a long game.
It is a long game.
And so, what is anything coming up in the future for your classes that you can talk about? Any interesting things or events happening?
Yeah, so Mark just started doing, I forgot to mention this, on our Snoga page, it's not just yoga anymore. Mark just started doing weekly workouts, at-home workouts. And so people can join those lives or watch the recording as well. And then Mark is also doing his yoga teacher training at the moment. And I'm joining on just to, greaten my experience too. And he's going to start teaching yoga once that's over.
Nice. Now, what is involved in becoming a yoga teacher? Do you have to do a certain amount of classes or go through a training class?
Yeah, so it's a 200-hour program.
200 hours. Wow.
Yeah, so it's it's a mix of studying, reading, meditative practices, yoga practice, obviously the teaching side. Mine is different because I'm doing it online. So normally this would be in person over a period of 4 weeks to 6 months.
Okay.
But mine, I'm expecting to take 3 to 4 months, a little bit every day, every other day. But yeah, it's intensive. It's school, and it's a little scary for me just because I'm not familiar. I'm more familiar with the strength, flexibility, the rehab side of things. So this is another side of movement that I've never really dove into, but I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually considered being a teacher because I've done over 140 classes. It's like I probably could teach a class by now. I've heard it 100 times. So
Totally.
it's just now you got to be doing the exercise and talk about it as you're doing it, which is a little bit more difficult. It's one thing hearing it, it's another thing explaining it to people.
Yep.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Yep. And it's going to take practice. Like anything, like it's scary the first few times, but I could lead someone through a gym with my eyes closed, or walk them through rehab exercises with my eyes closed. So it's like anything else. It'll be scary at first, but it gets easier over time. I'm sure, like with racing, it was scary at first, but now it's second nature.
Yeah, I mean, people always say, well, how do you go that fast? Well, I'm like, you don't start there. You start going like parking lot speeds around the racetrack until you go a little bit faster and a little bit faster. You just slowly build up speed. And most people think, oh, I'm going to fly off the racetrack. Well, if you're going to say either you went too fast or too slow, 99% of the time people go way too slow. It's not too much of out of control speeds and just flying off the track. That's more rare. So it's much more controlled and calm than people think of it as.
Confident.
A lot of people have this idea that we're just crazy people. We're listening to heavy metal music and just going, crazy before a race. And most of the time, you watch a pro race, they're all just super calm. Maybe sipping on their water underneath the umbrella, just trying to get some shade and reduce their heart rate, just relaxing.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the race.
Yeah.
Totally.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a professional, let's say MotoGP guy, and the amateur circuit, as far as their skill level on a bike, the times, and mentality?
So there's going from professional Moto America to MotoGP, as far as lap times, you're talking, well, they're different machines completely. MotoGPs are all prototype, unique bikes that you cannot really buy off the showroom. Moto America here in the States, professional series, they are production-based bikes. So it's an idea you can go to the showroom and buy one and now basically strip down all the parts and put all new parts on it, but it's the same chassis. And then they would do engine work still. So it's a far cry from the showroom bike, but you could still buy it technically. And so, for example, we just had a 5-time US champion in motorcycle racing at our top level in the country go over to the Moto 2 class, which is one step down from MotoGP. It's a 600 class, essentially, 765, I think it is now. And he just got his best finish of 4th place at his 38th race. So a 5-time champion, I don't want to say the word is struggling because he's not. He's doing really well, but it's just you're not going to go overseas to the next level and immediately start winning. It is such a competitive field. It'll take you at least probably 2 seasons to even get a podium for most people. So, you know, it's a stacked field of every single person in that championship is at least a national champion in their own country, if not already a world champion at other levels. So it's an incredibly stacked field. You might have, you know, in some of the classes at the finish line, 20 riders finished within 10, 20 seconds of the race leader. So whereas in the States, you might have a lot of the guys at the mid pack to end of the field might be club racers, might be amateurs who are doing a wild card one-off event. Maybe they do a couple of races a season, or who are maybe their first season as a pro. So you have a lot bigger gaps at the end of the race, and some people getting lapped. And now, even at a pro race, I worked at Road Atlanta in Georgia this year. They had 40 riders qualify for the race, and they only took 28 based on their lap times. So and these are riders who are seasoned pros. It's not their first year doing it, who have been riding and racing for 15 years and who didn't qualify for the event. So it's an incredibly difficult and very stacked field as far as your 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th place might be covered by 1 second in lap time. You know, it's very, very tight. On a variety of machines too. It's they try to make it so the rules are you can race a BMW, a Yamaha, a Ducati, a Kawasaki in the same class and with the same general engine specs. So they're all basically the same horsepower, but each bike has its own unique characteristics. So one bike might be faster in a straight line, the other bike might be better at turning, and so some tracks you might suffer, some tracks you might have a good day. It kind of all depends, and the rider, whether or not you're on a certain bike, the rider has the more influence over the speed and trajectory of that bike than any bike will. Yeah, it's a combination of everything put together, and the skill level to try to find the best package.
Gotcha.
Very cool. Well, Eric, I hate to cut us short, but I have a massage therapy client I need to get to.
Sure, no problem. That's about an hour. So I appreciate you guys coming on. I still have a couple to edit and post before I get to this one, but I'll be sure to tag you guys in it and share it as much as I can.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks
for having
us.
Sure. Take care, and I'll see you at the racetrack.
All right.
See ya. Bye, Eric.